I never would have thought like, playing football was like a possibility for me. It's a violent physical sport, and I was just like, I don't know if that's for me. But first question I asked was like, do I have to hit anybody? When I found out about, kicking and punting, I'm going to go out there and like just prove to myself like I belong here, and I'm just going to go out and dominate.
Welcome to the ZenGame podcast. I am Tommy Morris. It's where we get in the minds of your favorite college athletes. Emiliano, thank you so much for joining us here at the University of San Diego. Have you heard of Travis Hunter?
I have, yes.
And he plays receiver and cornerback, right?
Yep.
You play kicker and punter, so I could argue that you're maybe as impressive as him. Are you ready for your Heisman Trophy speech?
I mean, shoot, maybe. Think so.
Would you consider yourself a kicker who punts or a punter who kicks?
Definitely kicking for sure. All day.
And so how did it evolve from being, I'm assuming through the recruiting process, probably a little bit of both, and then you sort of find out maybe I can do both. So what was the thinking when you were going back to your recruiting process? Like, did some schools just want to use kicker, some just as a punter, and then how did it evolve to this?
I mean, during the recruiting process, I was kind of, shooting for both because that's what I was doing in high school. So my mindset was, all right, when I'm getting recruited, I want to tell these coaches, hey, I want to kick and punt. But then slowly, like once I got here, to San Diego and kind of got a reality check, okay, doing both is not going to be, possible really, just because it's like the wear and tear and like, body might not be able to handle it. But eventually, like once I started getting it, and balancing out both, I was kind of just like, okay, I think we'll be able to stick with kicking right now, and then just kind of have the punting as, something in my back pocket.
So your side hobby is punting?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, yeah.
The mindset, well, first of all, we got to talk about your nickname. So you're Smoothie, right? Like,
Yeah.
did that happen in high school? Did that happen recently? When did you start going by Smoothie?
It happened when I first got here in the summer, my freshman year. I was in 2024. I was down at Manchester Field, and I was, just out there kicking and everything, doing my thing. And my buddy, CJ Cerrone, he was throwing to Elijah. And, I mean, everyone knows, how Elijah is. He's got his safe ballot and everything else going for him, and he kind of just threw out there, what if we did like a Jamba Juice NIL deal? And, first name, starts with an E, Emiliano, and what about if we, went with Smoothie? And once I heard that, I was kind of just like, you know what, let's run with it. I like it. New nickname, new place, like, let's start something new. And that's kind of how it happened.
Is there like a mental switch that goes off into Emiliano and Smoothie? Like is there like is it two different people, or is it like does it give you a little extra like bravado, almost like a Superman?
A little bit. I mean, usually, a lot of people will just go by Smoothie most of the time, and usually when they call me Emiliano, it's
You're in trouble.
Some serious. Yeah, exactly. So Smoothie usually is what they call me on a daily basis, but Emiliano, every so often, sums up.
And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between kicking and punting. Obviously, pretty different mindset, right? Punting, like you have an aim point, but if you miss by a couple of yards, not a big deal. Kicking, you got to hit it through the upright. So,
Yeah.
Do you have a different mental process when you're going out there for a punt versus a kick, and what is it?
I think for me, the biggest thing, like when I go out there for like a big kick, like what I always think about is like, I'm gonna make this, like no problem. And one thing that I kind of like started like learn as I kind of like got older and like, started playing like this year is just like owning it and owning like what I do out there on the field, and just knowing like I'm the best out there. Like I got my teammates out there with me, and like we're just gonna go out there and execute to like a high level. And same thing with like punting too. It's like I go out there with the same confidence, knowing that I'm gonna do my job, execute at a high level, and just go out there and have some fun and make something happen.
And normally the punter is the holder.
Yep.
You obviously can't hold for yourself. So, but if you had to learn how to do it, just like, hey, who's the holder, and how did that process all happen too?
Our holder right now is Trey Ortega. Shouts out to him. He's been doing a really good job this season. I know. I don't think he's ever held before prior to this season. So him going out there and putting the ball down where it needs to be, especially in like big moments and stuff, where how to win us a game, how to tie the game, stuff like that. He's been doing a phenomenal job for me. And obviously, like for us, as a unit, to just go out there and execute.
Even warm-ups, right? Because like everyone has their own warm-up. Normally the punters are doing their own thing, kickers are doing their own thing, but you have to do, and kickoffs and whatever, like you got to do everything. So How do you go through your pre-game routine? Like, what comes first, and then how do you sort of get through it to get ready for game day?
Usually, obviously, I got to go out there really early. Before that wasn't the case. I kind of take my sweet time with everything, kind of be a little bit more relaxed. But ever since, I started doing both, it was like, oh, shoot, I got to get out there a little bit more early. I got to, start stretching out. And, I mean, usually when I go out there, I usually go out there like hour and a half, maybe hour 45, nice and early, to just, stretch out, do a couple sprints here and there, get a few swings in and stuff. So, yeah, I'd say like that, balancing out both is kind of how I go about, just getting out there early, taking like the mental reps, physical reps, everything else like in between to really just, have that right balance of both and feel good before the game.
And then I've heard you're a good ping pong player as well.
Yeah.
I know it's on the school website, so I have to bring it up. How did people find out? Was it just one of those things like in the locker room, like I think this might be the best player on the team? Is that what sort of happened?
I mean, usually during fall camp, that's when things get pretty competitive with the guys. I know, shout out Matt Colombo and Trey Moore. Those are definitely some of the other top guys on the team for ping pong, for sure. But I mean, I like to consider myself in that category, that top 3 on the team for best ping pong players.
Is that competitive energy still there? Can you relax a little bit from playing ping pong, or is it the same competitive? Like, is it one of those things if you lose, you got to make them play again?
I mean, usually, we could go on for hours and hours. I mean, usually during fall camp, we would play for hour, 2 hours straight. I mean, one time we were almost late for meetings because it got so competitive, and we had a good crowd. Everyone was, cheering us on and everything. So it's nice to have that little competitive fire.
And talking about competition, you guys had a huge game against one of the better teams in the conference, St. Thomas. Great game for you. You had the game tying kick and the game winning kick. So kind of walk us through both of those. I think both with less than 2 minutes, right?
Yep.
So did you think the game tying kick was probably the last thing you're going to do in regulation, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, go back out there a minute later to go win the thing?
I mean, when I had to tie the game up, I was kind of just like, I was fired up. I was ready to go. And then after that, I was kind of like, all right, I'm looking at the clock, just mentally getting ready. If there's a situation where I got to go out there, like, I'm going to, tell myself, hey, if I go out there and I got a chance to, like, win us the game, I'm going to go out there and do it. So that's what happened. That was the case. And, we got that win that week, and it was huge for us. So I was really happy about that.
And again, because you're also the punter, right? So most times the kicker, like, all right, we got the ball. I'm already visualizing I'm gonna go out there for a kick, right? But you also might go out there for a punt. So like, how do you, is there a certain yardage where you switch over? Like, how do you go about that when we're on offense?
Usually, I mean, me and my long snapper, Carter Trooper, usually, we're always talking on the sideline, like if we're like behind the 50, on our side, we're usually getting ready for the punts and stuff. He gets his warm-up snaps, I get my hands right, we get ready to catch the ball. And then once we get past that 50, that's when I know it's, field goal time. So I go to the net, get a few swings in, mentally, physically, just get ready for that.
Has there been a time where you were warming up for one and the other thing happened? Like you're getting ready to punt, all of a sudden 40-yard pass, and then, oh God, I got to go run and go get some kicks in, or like, has that ever happened?
Oh, it definitely has, for sure. It definitely has. I'm like getting ready right here for a punt, warm up, and I'm like, oh wait, hold on, Carter, it's field goal time. Let's get ready.
Well, and I think kind of weirdly enough, that might actually play to your benefit, right? Because you don't have time to think about it. You just got to go out there and do whatever it is, right? Like, do you think that it does help you a little bit in both aspects, not having to agonize and think about, oh, I got to go kick a field goal, or oh, I got to go punt this, like, and just whatever, I'm out on the field, like,
yeah, I mean, usually in that case, I mean, I'm just ready to go, like, whatever it is, whether it's a punt or a kick, I'm kind of just like, all right, I'm going out there on the field. I got to go do my job and just execute at a high level, and whatever happens, and it's just on to the next play.
And as you said, you do this in high school too, so you're kind of used to it. At Villa Park, not far away. So do you have a big contingent every home game? Is family, friends able to come out, or what's it like normally on a game day for you?
Yeah, usually I got pretty good crowd coming out to support me. Shout out to the family back home and all my friends back home and stuff. So it's nice, like, seeing them, like, at the games, just supporting me and always just being by my side, going through all this. It's nice to just have that foundation with me and knowing, like, people are watching me and, like, they care about me. And, the best thing that I want to do is give everything I got and let it out all on the line.
And how much was the proximity to home, kind of a thing for you? Was it not really, weren't thinking about it and all of a sudden it just ends up that way, or was that part of your decision-making process?
Oh, I think for me, I knew I wanted to stay here in SoCal. I mean, I love it here. I've been growing up here with my whole life, and I was kind of just, you know, I would love to just stay home. And, you know, when Coach Carter, when he came to visit me in high school, my senior year, he, you know, we were talking about it. This wasn't really a school that really caught my eye at first, but once he, you know, came to visit me and we started talking about it, and I started looking into it a little bit more, I was kind of like, oh, you know what? I really think this is a good school, great school, you know, love it here. And I think I can make, you know, big impact here. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's do it. And so far it's been going really well. I've been enjoying it and looking forward to continue that success.
And the recruiting process, I feel like for specialists is very different than every other position because I feel like it happens later and there's so many guys competing for one spot essentially. So what was that like? You know, again, you mentioned your senior year. Normally that process happens earlier for you, a little bit later, but I think that's how all kickers and punters are. You know, what's it like having to be a specialist going through that process?
Definitely stressful for sure, because I know I was talking to my dad the other day, and we were kind of just like looking at some of the other kickers like in my class that, you know, were just dominating the competition, you know, back then, like when we were all in high school. And we were kind of just looking at like how, you know, some guys that were like at the top, they're not playing right now. And it's like I wasn't like that top guy, you know, like I was up there, you know, competing, but I wasn't really getting like the looks that I'd wanted. And like at times, like I would get down on myself, like, you know, putting all this work in, you know, I would think what my ranking is. Yeah, someone big, you know, is gonna be knocking on my door, you know, asking me, you know, questions like if I want to, you know, attend their school and stuff like that. But honestly, the way it's been working out so far, you know, playing here like at a smaller, you know, Division I school has been like benefiting me a lot, just because like I've been able to, you know, put my foot right there, right on that door, and really just make a name for myself so far. Whereas like some guys, you know, that are going to the bigger colleges, you know, they're not getting like the same experience I am, you know, playing and getting that film.
And I think too, as specialists, I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it kind of doesn't matter whether you're at a big school, small school, because it's all sort of this, it's,
Yeah.
again, of any other position, it's more like you can isolate it specifically to you. So how much of that recruiting process was sort of a matchmaking thing of like, where do I think I have a chance? You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of kids will get a big offer from a big school and they don't think about the depth chart. They just get excited and they just take it, right? Like, so how much of that whole process was matchmaking to make sure you fit in wherever you went?
No, yeah, I've definitely, I mean, there's been kicking coaches that I've worked with, you know, over the years of my kicking, you know, career, where they've definitely talked about like their depth chart and like how kind of like how they went about, you know, their college careers. And I mean, some guys go to like big time schools, third, fourth string guy, you know, they end up going to a JUCO and playing there and getting some film, and then, you know, they bounce back and stuff. So, I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. Like in high school, I didn't play varsity until senior year, and like that was the only like season I really had under the lights. And, you know, having that feeling of like sitting behind somebody and knowing like, you know, you could prove yourself right and really go out there and like help the team win and stuff like that in a big way. It was kind of like one of the things where it's like, I want to do that like right away. And here was like the perfect spot for me. I mean, last year I redshirted, and then that was kind of like a time for me to really like rethink, focus, and just dial in for, you know, my redshirt freshman year right now. And so far it's been paying off. I've been seeing a lot of the, you know, success really translate to like my game that I was doing, you know, in the summer, like in the spring and stuff like that. So just being ready to like adapt and accept like the new challenge right away right now it's been huge.
And you talk about sort of having to wait your turn in high school, right? And I think this happens to a lot of kids who are talented, but they're just for whatever reason are stuck behind somebody else, right? Like, how did you mentally keep the confidence and, you know, the assurance of yourself that you could really do it, not just in high school level, but at a Division I level? And then who are some people who helped you like cultivate that mindset?
I think for me, like knowing the jump from like high school to college was one of like the biggest things that was like making me a little nervous. You know, at first, like when I was looking at like the level of play and like kind of like the size of all the guys, I was like, holy crap, you know, I don't really know anybody. And, you know, just seeing everyone out here kind of like screaming and yelling and kind of just, you know, doing their thing, it was really like intimidating for me. I was like, man, do I really like belong here and stuff like that? But over time, you know, I was kind of just like thinking to myself, you know what, like I belong here. Like I'm gonna be here, you know, for a good reason. And just having like that confidence, you know, from like my family, like just believing in me. Like my dad always saying like, you know, you got this. You know, you're gonna go out there and just let it all out on the line, and you know, show no fear. And also like my coaches too. It's like playing with like that swag and like that confidence to just know like you're like the guy, and like as long as like you just own your moment and block out everything else, like everything's gonna be good and the results are gonna come.
Was there a specific moment you can remember where you're like, I belong? Was it maybe something happened in practice, maybe your first kick in a game? Like, did you have that like light switch moment? Like, okay, I'm good with this.
Definitely. I mean, the beginning of this season when we played Cal Poly, sold out crowd and everything, you know, was able to kick off that game. And, you know, I got a touchback, you know, for my first collegiate kickoff. And I was kind of just like, you know what, like, this is it for me. Like, this is the reality. And, like, I'm going to go out there and, like, just prove to myself, like, I belong here, and I'm just going to go out and dominate.
You mentioned the swag. So kickers, I feel like you have to have a little bit of swag, right? But I feel like there is a breaking point where it gets kind of like to be like a little too much. It's like, all right, calm down, buddy. So what's a perfect balance for a kicker and amount of swag? I feel like you, as a punter, you could get away with gloves, I think. I don't think more than 2 wristbands. I think at that point it becomes excessive, right?
Yeah.
What's sort of the healthy balance for a kicker or punter, the amount of swag they're allowed to wear?
I don't know. I mean, we were talking about it with the quarterbacks during dinner on the last trip when we were in Valpo, and I mean, just I think like, you know, some sweatbands, you know, on the wrist, you know, maybe some tights. I feel like, or maybe, you know, like one sleeve on one arm. I think that's like the right amount. Yeah, that's the max. Anything else, you know, it's kind of just doing too much. For me, I just like to keep it simple. You know, just wrist tape, you know, jersey on, some undershirt, and you know, some soccer grip socks and stuff like that. Just, you know, keep it simple.
But again, you kind of get away with it because you also punt, right? So you might even need to make a tackle. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? You might need it. So sort of like, you know, to get you to this point, who are some of the people you want to thank, and who are some of the people who are really influential in getting you from high school to now starting as a kicker and punter here at Division I level?
I think definitely my family for sure, like my dad and my sisters for sure. I mean, looking back like at all the things like they've done for me, and like the sacrifice that they made to help me get to like this point in my life. I want to give them like a huge thanks for sure, because like the amount of time and just everything in between, like the investment that they made on me is huge, and definitely like having that like is something that I appreciate each and every day. And you know, every time I step out on this field, or you know, I wake up and you know walk to class, it's like I thank them for just always being by my side and just always holding it down for me. And the best thing that I could do is just go out there and give them my all each and every day, make them proud. And also like my friends too, you know, I definitely would have not gone into kicking or punting if it weren't for my friends from back home. Because I mean, I never would have thought like, you know, playing football was like a possibility for me. Yes, you know, it's a violent physical sport, and I was just like, I don't know if that's for me. But when I found out about, you know, kicking and punting, first question I asked was like, do I have to hit anybody? Like, no, kickers and punters, you know, they don't really do much. And I was like, all right, then, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I was a soccer guy, so, you know, first time I kicked the football, I went back to like 45, 50 yards, and I was like, oh, I think,
Not bad.
yeah, not bad for my first go at it. And I was just like, you know what? Let's see where I could take it. And I mean, it's been paying off for sure.
Any shout outs you want to give to family, friends, anything like that before we let you go?
Definitely like shout out all like my kicking coaches that I've worked with, John Carney, Joey Cejudo, Chris Saylor, you know, Jaime Medina, all you guys. Really appreciate you guys, you know, always supporting me and just, you know, showing me the ropes on, you know, being the best I can be. You know, my coaches here, big thank you to you guys for, you know, just believing in me and allowing me to have this opportunity. My family again, my friends, everyone in between. And if I didn't mention you, you know who you are. Just, I'll always be, you know, the best I could be for you guys, and just out here to make everybody proud and, you know, love everybody, and let's keep this thing rolling.
Smoothie, thank you very much, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.